Job Seekers Podcast. My name is Mark Anthony Dyson, and I am your host. If you want to know more about me and what I do, you can go to the voiceofjobseekers.com, where I reside in all things job search. Try to make things a little bit easier for you. I always say I hack and reimagine the job search. I want you to be able to enjoy the experience today as we talk with Destiny Lalane. Now, did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Okay, Destiny Lalane. I've known Destiny for a long time. We've always passed each other on either the IG streets when I used to have IG and the LinkedIn streets these days. And I'm very familiar with her work. I've looked at her work for a long time and I know her posts quite well. I can't say I can recite them all, but I know them all. She's a recruiter. She's founder of the recruiting school, recruiting training for recruiters by recruiters. Welcome to the show, Destiny.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me today, Mark. I know we've been internet buddies for a while, and I really enjoy your insights and your thoughts and your commitment to helping other job seekers because it's true. The scene changes so quickly and
Yes.
we have to stay on top of it. So I really appreciate all that you do to keep people informed on what they can do different to stand out.
Well, thank you. And I think you've experimented quite a bit over time. You look at different ways to use and to help not only recruiters, but you help job seekers quite a bit. And you provide a lot of clarity in your posts and how to approach recruiters and how to work with them. And that's deeply appreciated because a lot of people in my audience do work with recruiters. A lot of my peers are recruiters, co-hosts have been recruiters. So I am used to working with recruiters, but I think a lot of people have a lot of misgivings and myths about recruiters. And I think some of this will clear up today as you're going to provide some very helpful information about using artificial intelligence, because that is something that's being talked about everywhere. I've been talking about it for several years now. I've written articles about it, and I think that people really need to know what is it, how is it going to affect me, and am I going to need to do something a little bit different? And all the answers to that question is yeah, you will need to do something different, but that's going to be different for everybody. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. And similarly, it's I've been experimenting with AI for years as a recruiter and as a job seeker. So my goal here today is to give a little more insight on how these tools are being used and clear up any miscommunication around that kind of stuff, and also give job seekers some insights on how they can be using these tools as well. So if you want, we can just jump into it.
Yeah, let's jump into it. If you have questions, please feel free to put it in the comment section. Those of you who are on LinkedIn and on YouTube, those of you in Twitter, feel free to retweet, and you can feel free to also ask questions there. I'll try to, in between everything that was going on, try to answer those questions or get Destiny to answer those questions, one of the two. But here we go. I think one of the things that people are wondering how AI will play in the hiring spectrum, if you will. First, do you see AI for what people may have misgivings or have misinformation about? Do you see it replacing recruiters?
Yeah, no, those are great questions. I guess to start, I want to just kind of clarify what we mean when we're saying AI
Hmm.
and some of the tools that are popularized right now. And after we talk about that, we'll get into, is it replacing recruiters?
Right.
So I've been using a
Okay.
lot of
Fair enough.
different AI tools throughout my recruiting career. Before the Chat GPT wave, I was using a lot of different integrations, whether it would be Zapier, hacking things away with low code tools in Google Sheets and stuff like that. And the goal is never to use these tools to eliminate the candidates. It's actually to help us humanize the process by reducing doing redundant work as a recruiter, writing certain things that I shouldn't be writing from scratch over and over again. I have more time to be personable and to provide a better experience to the candidate. So I just want to highlight that, like, typically when you're speaking with HR people and recruiters, we want to do better. And we're trying to use this to empower ourselves, not to prevent others.
And we'll come
Um,
back to that because I have some specific questions about that, about what AI is and what AI isn't, so we can dispel some of that. But go ahead, continue.
So, for example, today we're talking about a lot of ChatGPT, right? Everyone's talking about ChatGPT. So, I want to break down a few different ways that it's actually used in recruiting in general, but just speak about the technology. So, when you hear about OpenAI is the company that created ChatGPT. And what that has done is it's made a user-friendly chat experience for using their GPT-3 data model, amongst other models as well. And I created what's called a framework to discuss kind of like the different use cases here, just because I know that there's a lot of confusion around it. So I want to highlight some of that for you guys first. So in recruiting, we have these things called leveling, and leveling helps us determine how much we pay an employee. So based on that leveling framework, I discover your level of competencies in different areas. And that is how I am typically calculating your salary. It's not just like, this is my salary range, I'm going to try to get them to the bottom. No, I want to get them to the place that's going to make them be paid fairly and keep them inspired, and also get them in a role that they're actually going to grow in. So when you think about the leveling framework, I know this model might be relatively new, but it's actually been around for years. We've been using it behind the scenes in different apps. So in 2020, I moved to Austin and I found out about this company, Jasper. Jasper is a company that also was one of the 5 companies that was allowed to use OpenAI's API back when it was closed. I believe it was 5 different companies. So through there, I started using this to help me create different job descriptions, little templates, and little things for communicating internally. None of this was like removing people from the process. Now, with OpenAI and access to the public, this is actually a huge opportunity for recruiters and job seekers alike. So I've defined 6 levels. This is a quick leveling framework to give you an understanding of how much you know and maybe what you should know on this information. So level 1 would be an associate. You have a basic awareness of ChatGPT. You've probably put a few prompts in. You have access to it. You've logged in a few times, and you're aware of that product. Level 2 would be someone who's generating more advanced prompts, meaning when you type into ChatGPT, you can ask it to create prompts with multiple steps. I can say, pretend you are a recruiter. I am interviewing for a job as an influencer marketing manager. Help me prepare for this interview. And you can paste in, before you click enter, paste in the job description. And before you click enter, say, go question by question, ask me a question and provide a sample answer. And that would be an example of someone who is able to go ahead and make more advanced prompts. Level 3 would be a playground user. A playground user is behind ChatGPT. There is this place where you can make your own templates and you don't have to code. And that would be considered a level 3 user. It's very, very fun, very interesting. Maybe another time we could talk about templates for job seekers. On top of that, there are advanced playground users. These are people that, they're creating really sophisticated templates, and they're going into level 5, which is an API user. You're taking this OpenAI API thing, you're plugging it into Google Sheets, you're plugging it into your website, whatever it is, that would be level 5. And then level 6 is someone who's full on building their own apps from scratch using this. So I just wanted to highlight that, just because there's so many ways you can use this, and it's not just generating text. People are using it to understand sentiment, they're using it to understand risk, and they're using it to do such creative things. So I just wanted to highlight that at the top.
No, this is good. This is good, because one of the things we need to kind of straighten out here in people's minds is that people thought that at first AI was a machine and a robot. And yes, there are some machine and robot-like tendencies, because a lot of it is about patterns and based on knowledge of what it knows or where it gathers information from. Is that a good way to kind of frame some of the myths that might be surrounding AI?
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say. And, similarly, so it's, to get into like ATSs, a lot of people are like, Harry, scary, the ATS is coming for us. And I'll be honest, the ATS is not as sophisticated as you want it to be. It's just not. And fortunately for everyone, there are tons of recruiters just like myself. We are reading every resume. Now,
Mm.
are we using Boolean searches within our ATS to pull up the most likely qualified candidates before reviewing everyone else? Yes, I think that's a fair thing to do. And what that means, if you're not familiar with the Boolean search, I might not even be saying it correctly, but I use it every day in my work. And it is, I do this on LinkedIn and I do this directly in my ATS. And I can say, in quotes, influencer marketing manager. So it will include that whole phrase, and beauty. And that would ideally pull up influencer marketing managers, whether I'm on LinkedIn searching for this or in my ATS searching for this, that have influencer marketing manager on their resume and the word beauty. Now, I know people like, there's like that weird stuff where people are like, should I copy all these keywords and put on your resume? No, because when I look and read the resume, I'm still going to see that you don't really have the experience. But these are different ways that recruiters are really empowering themselves. It's not like we're just massively auto-rejecting candidates. And the truth is, most people involved in the process understand how delicate that can be. And when they roll out anything like that, they're being very slow with it. They do not, like, if anything, it's auto tag these candidates as unqualified, but don't decline them. That just means that I'm going to look at those people last. And I just want to make sure, because I know that not everyone knows how to write a resume. So I want to make sure I'm disqualifying the right people. I don't want to just trust the bots.
And that's I think that's one of the things that people, there's so much information out there, right and wrong, where it gets convoluted and people want to know how it really is. And they wish they could take a camera of you watch you work with resumes to understand this a little bit better. That doesn't mean when you say you read resumes, you don't necessarily sit and read every single word, letter, and pronunciation in your head. It's a scan, more or less, that you've been trained to do over time, where you can look for the key points and highlight them to see if someone is actually qualified or not.
Correct. And to be honest, like I said, it's like you end up like basically prioritizing the resumes in different ways based on how they come up in your search. But most of us, we're looking at every resume, even if we are unfortunately rejecting you, because smart recruiters know that we might be able to hire you for a different role in the organization. Why am I going to go ahead and decline people that already know about my organization that I could either build a relationship with now because I'm hiring for another role 2 months down the line, or repurpose into maybe another role they wouldn't have initially considered that I think that they might be a good fit for.
Right. So AI, in that fact, will it read a resume the way that you would read a resume?
I believe it has the ability to. So, for example, if you had a GPT-3 model or whatever of these models integrated with your ATS, which right now I don't believe exists, it would be able to at least surface words and assume things. That being said, in order to do that, the AI, whatever we're going to call it, the data model, the algorithm would need to be highly customized by whoever is using it. So straight out of the box, it's not going to be like boom, boom, bam. But the truth is, I don't see people doing that anytime soon. I'm sure people are going to try to do it, but there's so much nuance when it comes to this stuff that I don't really see that happening anytime soon. Now, however, it would be interesting if it could surface a pile of most likely qualified candidates, but that's already existing in the sense that I can say, if a candidate has this keyword, tag them this. So it kind of already exists, if that makes sense.
Okay. So AI is gathering information. You make it as narrow as you want it to make it. If we're as far as your search, because you mentioned that you do a Boolean search. Now imagine you're looking for very specific titles, experience, and to at least get that process started to where you can review and compare, contrast different candidates, correct?
Correct. And then keep in mind, if I'm doing one of these Boolean searches in my ATS, maybe that won't be able to assume the job title variants. I can add them to my search. I can say influencer marketing manager or social media manager or content writer and beauty, and that'll surface those variations. But keep in mind, when recruiters are using other tools like, for example, LinkedIn, it is going to do its best to help you identify these gaps in your search and let you know, like, more likely than not, this is another job title, or you should be looking at these types of people, depending on how you're entering your searches within these tools. So it's cool that these AI sourcing tools are trying to supplement ourselves and say, hey, instead of trying to remove more people, it's actually saying you should actually be looking at these other people as well, based on what you're looking for.
Right. So do you expect the hiring process to be a little bit easier, quicker, perhaps, using these tools that will have that everyone will have at their expense or at their fingertips?
I would say yes, but I don't think it's in the way that people think. For
Hmm.
example, there are so many things that happen even before a job is posted online. It needs to be approved. There's something called a requisition approval process.
Hmm.
So even there, someone can submit, I can create a form, and a hiring manager can submit a requisition approval or a request for a requisition. Um, I can decline it by just changing one cell in my Excel sheet, and that hiring manager will get an automatic email letting them know that their request for requisition has been denied, right?
Hmm.
Now, that's a great way to save me some time. I don't have to type it up. It's the same message. They know who to contact to question that or challenge that. And that allows me to focus more on candidates versus dealing with hiring managers. And, another one could be once that requisition is approved, there is an email that goes out because I click yes on my Excel sheet. And that sends the hiring manager an email saying, congratulations, your requisition has been approved. Please complete these 3 steps before scheduling a call on my calendar. Because ideally, what we're trying to do using these tools is actually come up with the information that we need sooner so that we can get on a call and drive clarity around all of this stuff, whether it would be the actual role responsibilities, what a day in the life looks like, who is this person engaging with, what questions are really going to drive into these specific competencies that we say we're looking for. And I can go ahead and pre-educate myself because constantly we are hiring for roles that are new and maybe we have not done ourselves. So I can go, and instead of going on Google and reading all this stuff, it is really helpful for me to use something like ChatGPT and say, can you help me understand what this role actually does and what's the difference between this role and that role? And I can go into my hiring conversations with managers with more information to have better conversations so that the first week of interviewing candidates, we're not interviewing the wrong candidates. Because
Hmm.
oftentimes people, I don't know if people want to admit it, but oftentimes the beginning of your search is when it is a new role. You are kind of figuring it out as you speak to the candidates. You think you're looking for one thing, hiring managers will tell you next week they're looking for something else. So I
Right.
think that this, it's been great because I've been able to automate some of that onboarding process with the hiring managers. So again, we can speak more about the candidates and the nuance of the role versus all this really foundational stuff that used to take us so much time. But I can write a job description, all the questions for a job interview, and an email outreach in 5 minutes using this.
Wow. So for you, it saves you a lot of time, and ultimately, so you can spend more time doing the actual job than the preparation for the job, where that is kind of uncharted territory for the job seeker eye.
Correct. And I feel like it is allowing me to create better relationships with people because also it's like, declining a candidate's hard. Like recruiters, we like what we do. We do not want to decline candidates. It's a struggle. And it's
Mhm.
been helpful for me to come up with a better way to just be like, hey, we're not moving you forward. And I think that is great. And also, it's been helpful for even just spell check. I don't have the best grammar.
Interesting.
You could just say,
Okay.
can you edit my resume? This is my resume. Can you edit it for grammar? Or this is my cover letter. Can you edit it for grammar? Or
Hmm.
even just sounding more empathetic, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
we're so busy, we have to do so many things, but I don't want to sound like a robot, but I don't have a lot of time. So it's like I want to get back to candidates quickly, but also empathetically. And ChatGPT has helped me with that.
Okay. And by the way, if you're watching in the audience, you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat and I'll be able to see it. Again, LinkedIn, YouTube, there's a comment section, and then Twitter. try to retweet it and then put your question along with the retweet so that way I can and we can see it if you want to. I don't remember if I tagged you on Twitter or not, but if I didn't, I'm sorry. I'll be sure to tag her in my response. Um, yeah, so basically, the answer to some of what I originally thought said, yeah, it's going to save you time ultimately. It's going to also give you a chance to focus a little bit more on the candidate as you expressed. You said recently, and I think this might be a little sidebar, but I think it's kind of related. And if I could read the post, you said if you're not tracking, you're talking to recruiters. Obviously, in this particular case, it said if you're not attracting inbound candidates, if your sequences aren't getting opened, if your LinkedIn in-mails aren't getting responded to, no tool automation or chat GPT prompt can save you. Fixing your fundamentals will. And I think you kind of explained a lot of that. Is that a lot of that is part the fundamental part of being a recruiter.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so true. It's like there's so many people on the market right now. If you
Hmm.
seriously are not receiving any inbound, it's okay if it's not qualified, but if you're seriously not receiving any inbound, you have some fundamental problems going on right now.
Hmm.
Is something broken on your website? Is your ATS funneling your candidates appropriately? And I'll tell you, sometimes they're not, which is why following up with people is super important. I always tell job seekers, by the way, apply for the job first, then go follow up. You don't know
Hmm.
how on top of things people are or are not. I'll tell you that right now for the roles that I'm working, every single day there's 0 people at the end of the day because I go through and I am declining people or moving them forward every single day. So if you're applying to companies that I work with, I will reject you or I will request to interview you in minutes sometimes. And I might reject you the next day. That doesn't mean you got automatically rejected. That means I'm on top of my pipeline. And then the second thing is, again, it's with so many people on the market and in general, like especially in a space like LinkedIn that is designed to attract job seekers. On the back
Hmm.
end, there's an area that I can pay for, and I pay for LinkedIn Recruiter. And I can literally
Hmm.
just search people who have said that they are open to work. And you can say you're open to work without having the banner, but I personally can see that you've disclosed you are open for work. Now, if there are all these millions of people looking for work and none of my messages are generating responses, the problem is me, it's not the market. And I say that as someone who has recruited all types of roles in all types of markets. And I've never had a problem finding qualified candidates. I've never had a problem getting them to get on a call with me. So it's like there's so many of these like sourcing AI tools that are always sold to us as recruiters. And it's like
Hmm.
if you're getting the fundamentals right, you're getting attracting inbound and you're getting responses to your outbound, then go look for a tool. But any business person would tell you find one channel to work for your business to generate money, right? To generate leads. And until you
Right.
get that one working, don't go doing 2, 3, 4. And yet we see these people who don't have fundamentals working, trying to use sophisticated tools on top of a bunch of stuff that isn't set up for scale.
Yeah, and you make a great point. I think there's a parallel point to job seekers, no matter what kind of qualifications you may have. If you're using LinkedIn and you don't say what you mean and mimic that experience that you've experienced professionally on your LinkedIn profile, the recruiter's not going to know that you're qualified more or just as much as anybody at the top of their list.
Yes. And I want to call out something that when I do these Boolean searches on LinkedIn, it's pulling text from
Hmm.
any part of your profile. That could be the language in your headline. That could be the language in your bio. That could be your literal job title, but also the descriptions that you have on each job. So keep in mind, you should go all out and fill that out. Make this the longest resume of your life. Make sure your resume is only one page, but your LinkedIn should have all of the things and all of the words that accurately describe your experience. Because if you just put keywords for the sake of keywords, I'm going to find you and I'm not going to be able to reach out to you, and it's just going to be a bummer because what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide you from my search on LinkedIn and I might not find you again. So I just want to highlight that too.
Yeah, I got to give a quick shout out to my man, Mark Miller, who I'm sure is going to send me a text after and ask about you because I think he likes you. Mark likes you. A whole lot of other people like you as well.
Oh, no, I
Because
appreciate
and
that.
yeah, yeah, and he has a podcast too. Hint, hint, Mark. Watch it. Anyway, as we move along in this conversation, one of the, I think this is a great view for a job seeker because we rarely hear about an unfiltered approach to recruiting that people hear that you're giving people now because people are used to all the things that job seekers shouldn't do from recruiters, especially if you're on LinkedIn and Twitter. They're always saying you shouldn't do all these things, but you're also giving us intelligence to what they should be doing. And one of the things they should be paying attention to is that relationship with you more often than they should, despite of all the tools that a recruiter and a job seeker may have at their fingertips.
I agree. I mean, obviously, I'm a little biased there because I am a recruiter. However, think about it this way. Recruiters, especially good recruiters who are really passionate about what they do, they'll be in the industry for a very long time. You guys will both have
Hmm.
your career for the same amount of time, right? So there are people who
Hmm.
back in 2019, when I first started recruiting, who had eventually reached out to me and I got other jobs, right? So if you find good recruiters and you build good relationships with recruiters, the both of you benefit from that. You don't know how that recruiter is incentivized financially, and you need a job, right? And it's their job to find people jobs. So to me, as a recruiter, I want to be building these long relationships, which is why when I reach out to people and they say that they're not interested, I turn around and ask them what they are interested in and when they are going to be on the market, because I will follow up. I will set up a
Right,
reminder and I will follow up because I'm using my tools in a way that, helps us resurface the right candidates at the right time. And then you had mentioned, being unfiltered on the process. And it's just, to me, no one ever taught me any of this stuff. We never talked about work growing up. We never talked about money. And to me, one of the first really empowering things that I found in my career was Glassdoor. So I found out
mhm.
that Glassdoor would give you a little bit of insight. And this is before salary transparency became the law that so many people are still violating. But I went on Glassdoor. I was living on Long Island, that's where I'm from, and I was working retail, trying to pay my bills, going to school. And I found out that I could make a few more dollars, or maybe like $1.50 more an hour, if I just worked at this department store versus this sneaker store in the same exact mall doing the same exact thing. So
Mhm.
that got me a better job. That helped me make more money. That helped me buy a car, move myself to New York City, and start my career. And I just think that if we're not doing anything shady over here in recruiter land, why wouldn't we give people insights on this? Because the more you guys understand this process, the easier it is for me. You're going to apply for the right jobs better. You're going to write your resume better so I can find you. You'll keep your LinkedIn sharp so I can find you. So it's
Right.
very mutually beneficial. And I'm just really passionate about this stuff. So I'm going to share it. And I hope you guys listen to it.
Yes. Well, this is fascinating. I learned some things here, even though, like I said, I've many of my colleagues are recruiters, and I love them to death, and I learn something new every day from them. One of the things I've read about is how AI or the use of these tools will create a better pathway for fit. Do you believe that? And if you do, could you explain how, or are there, of course, there are pros and cons in anything. You could just provide a couple of those.
Yeah, I would say that I probably disagree that it will help with fit. And I
Okay.
say and I say that just because some of this is still newer in the sense that we're still figuring out how to assume different sentiments and different skill levels. And the truth is, a resume is not always an accurate representation of the person and the person's skill.
Hmm.
So I don't want to go too far using someone's resume to assume they are or are not qualified. I think
Hmm.
that there's a place for it in the future. I would say instead, maybe it will provide different opportunities for people to be doing more meaningful work, whether that is the recruiter or that is the job seeker. So, for example, I didn't graduate from school, but most recruiters didn't go to school to be scheduling interviews all day.
Right.
Most recruiters did not go to school to be rewriting job descriptions all day. So to me, it's like being able to do more meaningful things like attend career fairs, build relationships with young talent so that when they graduate, we can work with them or we can get them into our internship programs while they're in school. There's just so many more higher level things that we can be doing, not to mention the most time sensitive or timely part of being a recruiter is
Hmm.
actually working and dealing with the hiring managers. So I know you had asked very earlier on, will AI replace recruiters? And the answer is no. It will actually, again, empower us because I spend more time dragging around our hiring managers, trying to get responses from them, trying to drive clarity or pushing back on their ideas or, trying to sell the candidates. Because that's the thing. It's like at the end
Hmm.
of the day, the person who's really fighting for you is that recruiter because they don't want the hiring manager to make the wrong decision. They've seen all of the candidates. They were the person maybe screening all of them and sourcing and interviewing. So, right, when you get to that final stage, instead of worrying about typing all this stuff, I'd rather just be like, okay, here's the facts. I'm going to go in and I'm going to defend my case on why hiring this person is the right decision and hiring your referral from college is not, because this person's actually qualified.
Well, I have a two-layer question, and something you said that kind of struck me, and maybe I misunderstood, so you can go back and clarify it. But I think for years people understood those who work with recruiters, unless you have a relationship, the resume is the only thing they have to go off of to decide whether someone is qualified or not. You kind of inferred that most people wouldn't write a good resume anyway, so there might be other ways to look at it, perhaps other than LinkedIn. Am I convoluting this pool here, or set me straight if you need to?
No, I think you're accurate. So that's why there are different things that, first of all, I mean, that's why we also get on calls with people that don't fit 100% of expectations because I don't know the person's full experience. And, they might be
Mhm.
missing one thing, but I can just ask. Whatever happened to asking? You, as a recruiter, if you're watching, you can just email someone back and say, hey, I was curious, do you have experience with X, Y, and Z? Because we're looking for people with
Mhm.
X, Y, and Z experience. And someone might be able to turn around and say yes. They might have domain experience, domain expertise in an area that your hiring manager is asking for. And you might just not know by looking at their resume. So, one, it's keeping an
Mhm.
open mind. And I also say that in the sense that I'm on LinkedIn with the assumption that your LinkedIn is crusty, you did not keep it updated, you might have gotten promoted, you may have new skills, you may not, you may have a new degree. So sometimes I'm looking at your resume or your LinkedIn, assuming where life may have taken you, and I'm reaching out
Mhm.
anyways to find out. And then you were saying about other ways. So there's two things I want to highlight here. That's why more and more often you're seeing companies have um, like an open application where they'll let
Mhm.
anyone submit, and people are looking at that on a regular basis, and they're like, oh wow, like I would have just never even thought to look for someone with this background, but this background is so good, and I think that we should interview them for this role, or I think that we should do some consulting work with them, or hey, like let's
Mhm.
create a whole new role for this person. And then on the flip side of things, that's why when you see questions around why do you want to work for this organization, I know that some people, they get a little annoyed when they see application questions, but when you see that question around why this company, a lot of companies, especially these CEOs, they want to see people who are interested in the mission and impact. And trust me, I understand that not everyone's life mission is to drive revenue and work for an organization. However, if we're talking about standing out and what people are actually doing, when you show genuine interest or expertise or whatever it is in those responses, this goes back to what we
Mhm.
said at the top about Boolean searches, because then I can run a Boolean search on how you answer that question. And if you are using certain keywords, I can go through my thousands of people who applied for an open opportunity and first start with the people who are most interested in the actual company based on their response. Now, I don't always assume that they're going to be qualified or really, whatever it is, but it's an insight that I just want to share because people are reading it, and this is how we are surfacing your responses.
Well, I think there are a lot of older people who are listening to this and will be watching this in the future. They're going to wonder how that will affect them. Even on the outside, when we talk about being qualified, they want to know. still they have a lot of apprehension, such as employment bias, having coming from some of them coming from out of retirement back into the workplace, but yet still there's this ghost out here still that I'd rather hire somebody who's working than not working, and we can put all the other things that come to older workers. Do you find that in talking, how many do you talk to some, and do you get the idea that there's this apprehension going back into the working world or continuing with the working world because of all these tools that we have now that are scrutinizing us, at least we think, a little bit closer than we ever had before?
Yes. So you said a few interesting things there. So the first thing I just want to highlight real quick is something interesting that I've experienced several times in my career.
Hmm.
Because I'm typically sourcing people. And again, I'm making a lot of assumptions. I'm looking at LinkedIn profiles that may not be updated. I don't care if you have a profile picture or not, right? So I've
Hmm.
actually hired tons of people who I'm the person who reaches out to them. I schedule an interview, but for some reason I don't get matched with that person. The timing didn't work or whatever. They speak with the hiring manager. Then I start to hear good things about the candidate. Then they go into round three, they meet all their teammates. We give them an offer, and I don't even know how old these people are. I don't know what gender these people are. I don't know what
Mm.
race they are. I do not know how old they are. So I've hired people of all types of ages, all types of backgrounds, and I just would have
Hmm.
had never known because that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for qualified candidates. And if these are the minimum expectations, if a role says 2 years of experience doing influencer marketing manager work, not to keep bringing it back to that example, that does not
Hmm.
mean only 2 years of work experience. That means I need someone with 2 years of experience doing this specific thing. And personally, I don't care about your age. I just need you to do your job. And I see ageism from both sides, truly. Fortunately, not at the organizations that I typically work with. However, it exists from both sides, and it's an unfortunate reality, which is why I think that the work that you're doing, the work that I'm doing, and a lot of people in our space by exposing how to stand out and how to continue to evolve as job seekers is extremely important. And then you said the point on people want to hire people who are working. I always push back on that kind of messaging whenever I hear it, just because
Hmm.
it's just not grounded in reality, and people step in and out of the workforce at different stages of their life for different reasons. They could be stepping out, like, for example, a peer of mine, right out of her MBA, had to just take 2 years off of her career and go work as a server, take care of her mom. Her
Hmm.
mom like slipped and fell, and she had a brain traumatic brain issue going on. And like, it was probably really hard for her at her age to be just starting in her career. And I'm sure, like, on pen and paper, it was like, oh, wow, this person graduated and has been traveling or whatever it looked like she was doing. And in reality,
Right.
she was a caretaker. People step away to have kids, or they get ill. And also, it's people are people. We're allowed to just take a year off just to relax. You don't know what that person's previous job situation was. I've recovered from the craziness that a job can put on you emotionally, and we have to just give space for people to do this. It's really, really normal to take a break in your career, and in other states or other countries, it is very normal to take a 2-year gap or at least 1-year gap before in between high school and college. So why is it so freaking crazy for people to
Hmm.
want to just take a few of the summer off? I'm a red flag because I took the summer off to find a new job.
Right.
So again, that's why it's important for us recruiters to keep pushing back on that. And yeah, ideally make a better experience across the board for everyone involved.
You've been so generous with your time, and I'm going to have you back on the show because I love the way that you've been able to dissect everything that we talked about. Even in giving you a couple of lines of notes, you've been able to take that and be able to give actual training so that people will be able to understand what you guys go through, because we rarely see behind the curtain as far as careers. I hear it because, like I said, a lot of my friends are recruiters, but and I've never recruited, so I'm always fascinated to hear the language and see how each of them view the world and view job seekers and how they, one common thread for sure is that they're battling the corporate giants or the hiring managers that want to do something maybe faster and quicker without consideration that people are actually human. And I think that's part is gone where the recruiters are actually human, more than we think, but they're stuck because they're actually being paid by the company, not being paid by a job seeker or any other force.
Agreed. And I'll highlight this real quick before we go, which is I'm happy to share with everyone for free on how to use ChatGPT and turn it into a career coach. I'm
Mhm.
doing a video on Saturday, but you can literally ask it to pretend to be a career coach or pretend you are a hiring manager. Ask me these questions, like, and go back to that where you put the job description in there and ask it one by one to help you. And I think that that's a beautiful way that this technology can provide access to people who don't have access to just paying a career coach or maybe someone in their network that worked in their industry. My family didn't work in tech like me. I couldn't turn around and say, how do I do this? And yeah, so I want people to feel more empowered than scared of this stuff because this is the future and it's exciting.
Yes. Now, do you currently have a website people can contact you? Because I think people are I put your handles up as far as your social. Is there a website people can contact you at?
Yes. So I recommend going to destinylalane.com/recruiting. And that's where I share a lot more of information just like this, both from the recruiter side of things and also speaking to the job seeker as well. You can find me on any social media channel by searching my name, Destiny Lalane. And then feel free to reach out any way you see fit. There's a contact form on my website. My DMs are open. Feel free to reply to anything, question what I'm saying, challenge what I'm saying, and let's continue to grow together.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll be able to go back if you missed part of this. You can go to my YouTube channel, my LinkedIn profile, my Twitter feed, and I'll try to retweet that a couple of times so it'll always be fresh. So for everyone to be able to see it at any time, there'll be other pieces and sound bites that I'll produce from this. So you're going to be all over the place, Destiny. I swear.
I'm
But
super
thank
excited.
yes. Well, thank you very much. And we didn't talk about the comedian side. Maybe we'll do that the next time that you're around, that I have you back. But thank you very much for the rest of you who've been listening to the Voice of Job Seekers podcast. You've been also watching the video live stream. Again, feel free to go to my YouTube channel. I've got a whole lot more videos coming up. I got one releasing every day, whether it's a short or whether it's this type of live or some other content. It's pretty active. So go check that out. Ring my bell. I hate that. But yeah, ring my notification bell, subscribe, and do whatever you like. In the meantime, thank you very much. Peace in the valley of love for the rest of you. And Destiny, stick around for a little bit. Okay?